Hey, welcome to another episode of your Conversation Starter. My name's Wilhelm, and on this channel, what I hope to do is give you information or news that you can then use to make conversations with other humans, preferably, or your animals or your pets. I really don't care who you talk to, as long as you're being social. That's my whole goal of this channel. So that said, let's move on to this week's article, which is in the Washington Post. Written by the talented Antonia Nuri Farzan. Hopefully I didn't butcher your name. This was an interesting thing that was actually shared by a viewer, which I thought was pretty interesting. It's a little different. Let's dive in. So, an inmate claimed his life sentence ended when he died and was revived. Curious? Benjamin Schreiber is very much alive, but it hasn't stopped him from arguing that he died 4 years ago. Now, after the convicted murderer collapsed in his prison cell in 2015, doctors restarted his heart 5 times. Recovering back at the Iowa State Penitentiary, Schreiber filed a novel legal appeal. Because he died before he was resuscitated, he had technically fulfilled his life sentence, or so he claims. Judges, however, aren't buying it. Dying for a brief amount of time doesn't amount to get-out-of-jail-free card, the Iowa Court of Appeals ruled on Wednesday, back in 2019, saying that the 66-year-old will remain in prison until a medical examiner determines that he is dead for good. Now, Schreiber is either alive, in which case he must remain in prison, or he is dead, in which case this appeal is moot, says Judge Amanda Potfield. So Schreiber has been behind bars since '96. When he was charged in the death of John Dale Terry, a 39-year-old who he bludgeoned to death with a wooden handle of a pickaxe. So he was in prison for murder. I don't want to get into the details of the gruesomeness of that. But nearly 2 decades later, he was hit with a severe septic poisoning, according to court records, that had developed kidney stones that were so large they caused him to urinate internally. On March 30th, 2015, he fell unconscious and he was rushed to the hospital, where doctors brought him back to life by administering epinephrine through an IV. Now, in 2018, Schreiber had filled a post-conviction relief claiming that he was being held in prison illegally. His sentence was supposed to end with his death, he argued, which had taken place 3 years prior, when his heart stopped. Now, a district court judge was not convinced by his creative attempt to find a loophole in the law, saying Schreiber's argument was unpersuasive and without merit. The fact that Schreiber was able to file a legal motion petitioning his release, the judge added, in and of itself confirms that he is a living being. Now, the inmate took his quest to the Iowa Court of Appeals, which was similarly unpersuaded. In an opinion published Wednesday, back in 2019, the panel of judges didn't attempt to reckon with the spiritual or medical definition of death, a philosophical question that has generated intense legal wrangling and complex debates over medical ethics elsewhere. Instead, they zeroed in on what life in prison means. We do not believe the legislature intended this provision to set criminal defendants free whenever medical procedures during their incarceration lead to their resuscitation by medical professionals, Porterfield wrote. Now, noting that they couldn't find any case law that would back Schreiber's position, the appeals court judges also ruled that he couldn't have it both ways, claiming to be dead as far as the criminal justice system was concerned while simultaneously going on with your life. You can't have both. In his appeal, Schreiber had also argued that the doctors violated his rights by failing to follow his do not resuscitate order when they pulled him from the brink of death. Now, according to court records obtained by the Des Moines Register, hospital staffers made the decision after conferring with Schreiber's brother, who only consented to giving him medicine to ease the pain. The panel declined to address that question because a lower court has yet to rule on it. Schreiber remains to this day incarcerated in Iowa State Penitentiary in rural Lee County. His attorney could not immediately be reached for comment on this article and was unclear if he plans to take his fight to a higher court. So there you have it. When does your court case end? I think this comes down to figuring out what the intent of that sort of life in prison means. I mean, at the heart of it, it's just a case of, if you murder people, we don't want you hanging out with the rest of us because you might murder one of us. And if you take a life, you kind of forfeit your life. And since murder is generally wrong, that we're not going to kill you, which they used to do. Used to get, you take a life, they take your life. So now they just kind of make your life in a box. So lots of things to talk about there. Kind of interesting. It is a bit creative that he's trying to use this loophole like he is, but there's something for you to start a conversation with, get talking about stuff. And if you like these videos and you want to see me make more, then subscribe. I'm going to make them anyway, so I guess really if you want to make sure you don't miss a video, subscribe. That's a better way of wording that. And thanks for viewing, and we'll catch you next time. Stay social, folks.